Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harrison. Each week, I'm joined by huggable, hairy homos who love film, who also, in my opinion, happen to be quite fetchingly handsome, to dish up some movie news and review a film, either current or classic. With me, as usual, this week for episode 232 of the Movie Bears podcast are my partners in crime. Jim Pugliafco, welcome to the show.
Hi, and welcome to the podcast, everyone.
Hello, hello. And Will Lindis is here with us as well. Welcome, Will.
Hey, Brad. Hey, Jim. Jim and I aren't the only fetching ones here. You yourself are quite the handsome fellow, and we've got some quite fetching guests joining us live as well on our YouTube live chat. So this is just, there's so much sexy in one place, you can't even contain it.
Well, Will, thank you so much on behalf of myself and our listeners who are joining us in the live chat right now. We've got another William with us, very handsome, as well as Dan McCord, the ever delectable and tasty. So Dan, glad to have you with us as well. If you're watching the show live, don't forget, chime in, say hello, interact with us via that live chat panel. We'll be glad to give you a shout out on the show if your thoughts are, somewhat friendly for the airwaves. Hey, JP Wendell is with us too. Hey, JP. We've got a big question mark review this week. Bit of a struggle to find a movie we wanted to review. But we landed on The Circle, starring Tom Hanks and Emma Watson. So we will have that discussion in a little bit. Before we get to that, we have just a couple of other things we want to touch on real quick. One, for the first time in Movie Bears podcast history, listeners, we will not have a show for you next week. I've heard you never want to lead with the negative. I apologize. We love that you guys tune in week after week to hear our thoughts on films, but we aren't going to have a show next week. And the reason being is because Jim and I, literally when this show would normally be airing, we'll be getting married on a beach in Hawaii. And we just figured, probably a good idea just to, not podcast during your wedding, as fun as that could be.
We thought about that. That was one of our options. Like, we were going to just live stream the wedding, and they were going to stop midway. It's like, do you take this, man? Hold up. We've got to do a quick review of whatever bullshit movie just came out this weekend. Then we'll get to the rest of our vows. But we decided against it. We figured we'd let their wedding be their wedding.
If anybody wants to follow us there, next Monday evening at sunset on Sunset Beach in Oahu, on the North Shore of Oahu, and kind of live blog the wedding, certainly be our guest. I mean, it would be fine with us if we wanted to do it. We'd definitely put it up on the channel here.
Oh goodness, yeah. If there was going to be someone else with us, maybe we could do that. But
yeah.
We'll have to settle for pictures, I guess.
It's not too late.
Maybe we can just find a guy on the beach and give him $20 and be like, here, can you go live on YouTube for us right now? Would that be okay?
Yeah. William in the chat says honeymoon with Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And he's pretty spot on because I'm pretty sure we're going to see Guardians 2 either right before or right after the wedding, sometime in one of the movie theaters in Hawaii. So
that's right. It's gonna be a big weekend for us, right? Like getting married, going to Hawaii, seeing Guardians 2. Will, we're just bummed that we can't be with you at the same time on Monday at our normal date and time.
Do you know there's a very weird odd positive that came out of this? There is this Monday night series at the Alamo Draft House that started this month of the different melodramas of Douglas Sirk, who's like, did like way back movies. And I saw that and I was just like, well, I guess I'm going to miss those, and that's okay. This is what we do. So I'm going to be able to sneak one of those in.
Nice.
Plus, there's some other like kind of slightly very positive news in that I will actually be in y'all's area at the end of the month. So
that's right.
Hopefully there's a live, maybe we'll be able to get a live MBP while we're there, something like that. Just
that would be awesome.
Sort of make up for lost time.
And here's another positive.
Yeah.
Not only are you coming out, Will, but friends and listeners of the show, Walt and Darren, who are always sending in super sexy pictures to the show, are going to be out here that same weekend as you will, staying with us. So we'll have to do a little live broadcast, maybe get them involved somehow. They can say hi or something.
I mean, seriously, like we actually had a recommendation come in for you guys should do like an MBP live, and this could be our test run. Like the three of us record with a couple people sitting there watching. Like this would be the dry run for like maybe something bigger.
Except they'd probably be doing inappropriate things off camera that would be way too distracting.
So the problem is
not really a problem at all, actually. Yeah. So we've got a question here in the chat. Who is giving Brad away? I don't know that I have anyone to give me away.
I answered that you want Maui to give you away. You're welcome.
Nice. He'd be like giant father of the groom.
If we were a bigger show with like a super huge budget, we could have done like a sweepstakes. Like whoever wins we fly them to Hawaii and they get to give you away. Like just make it part of the event.
Oh goodness, that would be crazy.
I created the institution of marriage, so I'm giving you away.
Oh God. Oh boy. Well, I love seeing all of this chat going on in the live chat right now. Unfortunately, it is hard to keep up with all of you guys sometimes, but we try. We do our best. So feel free, as we are dishing up some movie news and reviewing The Circle, to chime in with your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. It's not just all about us all the time. So let us know what you're thinking. But how do we feel about getting to that movie news segment we keep sort of dancing around? Are we ready for that?
I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah, let's do it. It's movie news time.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Well, then, here we go. A little bit of movie news. Dim the lights. America votes now. Oh, wait, no, wrong show. All right, so this is the part of the show. If you are a newer listener, you may not be familiar with this segment, although as you may have deduced from the clever title of the segment, this is where we serve up some news bits from the film industry, things that have us excited, things that are coming up on our radar. And Jim, why don't we go ahead and get started with you? What's got your goat this weekend?
Well, so we talked a little bit about this movie that's coming up, this little movie. It's a sequel, another sequel to this little movie called Guardians of the Galaxy. So we have Guardians of the Galaxy 2 coming up. And it's kind of no secret if people have listened to our previous review of Guardians of the Galaxy from, 2 years ago now? A year and a half?
Was that 2014?
I don't know, man. It was a while ago.
Been a few years.
Yeah.
But my favorite of the Guardians characters is Rocket Raccoon. I just love the characterization of Rocket. I loved the kind of the depth of character that they gave that guy, and his a little bit of backstory, just enough so that you kind of are interested in the character and want to know a little bit more. So now there's a bit of rumor coming out about perhaps a Rocket and Groot spin-off movie coming out of this Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, which, we've got Guardians of the Galaxy 2. We're obviously going to get Guardians of the Galaxy 3, right? Because no matter how great, or which I hope it is, or how shitty this movie is, we're going to get, this is a juggernaut. These these Marvel franchises are juggernauts, and you're just going to get them whether you want them or not. So, but yeah, they're both Vin Diesel and the director James Gunn are talking about possibly a Rocket and Groot spinoff. There is a web series, a Rocket and Groot web series that I guess they, a little animated web series that I watched a little of, and it's really not my speed because it seems very juvenile, I will say, kind of maybe geared toward a younger audience, which is fine. It's a cartoon web series, but I'd be down for a Rocket and Groot movie. I don't know how much of those two characters we're going to get in this movie, if they're going to, flesh out any more of their backstory. I certainly hope they do, but yeah, I'd be down for it. There's no date, of course. This is all kind of conjecture. Nothing is set in stone. But man, I mean, at some point we're going to get an announcement of more movies that Marvel is going to lay out down the road. So something's going to probably come after Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and maybe a character spin-off movie makes sense. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, JP in the chat is calling this out. There was a Rocket and Groot sort of spin-off comic series that happened not too long after the original movie. I think I read it way back when, and it was sort of a limited run series. Like there were only a certain number of issues. It wasn't like a big, huge, multi-year spanning comic. But those were phenomenal. They were awesome. I loved kind of getting to learn more about these two characters and how they met and how they operate outside of the Guardians. And I mean, I think it's the best, comic comedic pairing in a long time. So I would be really excited to see a spinoff movie. The only potential issue I have with it is sometimes sort of like I took them all off my desk because I hate them now. But just like with the Minions, right? In the Despicable Me, the first couple films, like there was just enough Minions to be like, those are great. And then when we heard, there's going to be a Minion spinoff, it was like, I like the Minions. That'll probably be okay. And then it was like, you know what? No, awful. And so I hope that does not happen in the case of a Rocket and Groot movie, because if you're trying to fill a whole movie with them, I almost wonder if they would bring in like a different type of ensemble, like cast of characters to have them play off of to make it work. Otherwise it's not enough butter spread on too much bread.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely the problem that we face. I mean, it's not just Rocket and Groot as characters that you run this risk with. Just looking at the parallels over in the comic book world of things, there's a couple of characters who became extremely popular and then became overexposed to the point of becoming kind of parodies of themselves over time. Characters like Deadpool and Wolverine, who, there's little stretches where those characters appeared in every comic book to the point where you kind of hated them, even though you originally enjoyed them. You got to see a little bit of that with the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of in the last 3 years. After the success of that movie, there was a spin-off comic here, and now these people are crossing over with the X-Men, and now they're involved in this thing. And it became more and more and more and more of this huge presence. And I liked the Rocket, Raccoon, and Groot comic book. Scotty Young is one of our favorite comic book artists here in our house. We've got some of his art all over because we like that. There's a big. You guys have stayed in our green room.
I've seen that.
Yeah, that artist. He did a lot of the Rocket, Raccoon, and Groot stuff. I'm of the same mind. Like I would like to see this and see it done well. I'm also terrified that the horse is going to get beaten to death with these characters. I would almost rather just see them show up in the Guardians so that I can have just enough to keep me appetized. But again, all of that is trumped by the idea of if you make it good, I will be there.
Right. Yeah, I agree. There is that risk. JP had an interesting note in here along the same lines. He said, it's typically not a great idea to turn sidekicks into main protagonists. But he said it would work with any characters. I think these are the two to do it with. Maybe. And that's because I don't think, Star-Lord is kind of the leader, I guess you could say, of the Guardians, but he's not I don't know.
He's
I
the
don't see-
least interesting one out of all of them for me.
Yeah, well,
But he's got the
true.
best musical taste.
Well, sure,
Yeah.
but like that's his only reason for being in the films. I feel.
But I don't see him. I don't see it as one leader and a bunch of sidekicks. I see this as a true ensemble, band of, characters that have their own strengths. And you're right. It's not really a sidekick. But yeah, I can see if you slice that pie too fine. If you slice it too fine, you could get overexposed and just have not enough meat on that bone. I think, Brad, is what you were saying. But
yeah,
yeah.
And
something.
Oh, go ahead, Brad.
Something I just realized a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the Fate of the Furious, and it was like, oh, one of these days we're gonna have Fast and Furious in space, and now I'm kind of like, oh wait, we already do.
It's yeah, we kind of do. I think that the thing too is that these characters are not quite like the Minions themselves, and that those characters were extremely two-dimensional. I mean, maybe you could say like Baby Groot, the way he's being marketed, has the potential to run into Minions territory, and that's a very, very, very fair criticism. But even in that first movie, with only one line of dialogue repeated at different inflections, we got a lot more characterization out of Groot. And of course, Rocket, never shut the hell up. So we know a lot about how these characters are. I think it could work. I think it could really work with a good script that lets these characters just sort of wreak havoc across the galaxy. Like when you think about, even comparing to Fast and Furious, like I would be very cool seeing these two, quote unquote sidekick characters going off and doing their own thing. Whereas like, would you want to see the Tyrese and Ludacris spinoff movie from Fast and Furious? Like that sounds like that would be like the worst possible timeline if those two got their own spinoff movie. So like, yeah, the more and more I'm thinking about it, the more and more like I'm talking myself into being more excited about this as a potential idea.
Would that movie be Lambos in space?
They would shoehorn a Lamborghini in there somehow.
You're gonna drive a Lamborghini in space?
Oh God, they're gonna make that movie.
They're gonna
review it.
If you think you had handling problems on ice,
yeah,
you got a much bigger problem.
0G, bitches. Oh goodness. All right. Well, Austin King. Hey, Austin, glad to see you. As always, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Austin says, I would appreciate some more characterization from Gamora outside of just being Peter's love interest. So she probably won't be in the spinoff film, Jim. But I think she kind of suffers from, you mentioned it being sort of a true ensemble cast. I think she's like on the bottom third of like that ensemble in terms of characterization. So who knows? Maybe sending her along with Rocket and Groot, maybe it's like an in-between Guardians movie adventure type thing, might give them someone to kind of play off of. And, I don't know. That could be interesting. Yeah. I would like to learn more about her beyond having blue-skinned Amy Pond as a half-sister or whatever.
Yeah, anything outside of just being kind of the Smurfette of the group, like we do need a little more from her.
Mm-hmm. We'd like our Guardians movie to pass the Bechdel test, wouldn't we?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. Hey, with the characters showing up in this one, there's a good chance of that. There is
a good chance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. For sure. All right, guys. Well, we have some more movie news to get to, and time is quickly slipping away. Obviously, we're very excited for Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Jim, potentially good news of a spinoff movie if that happens. Yeah. Thank you for telling us about that. Will, what have you got this week?
Yeah, so this news item, I think literally split down the middle. Half of the audience is going to absolutely love this news item. The other half is not. And that's okay because these type of filmmakers like Wes Anderson have the potential to be extremely divisive. So Wes Anderson's new film has been announced. It's called Isle of Dogs, and it is a stop-motion film very similar to Fantastic Mr. Fox. We don't know a whole lot about it. We don't have like a trailer or anything. We know a couple of things. We know that it's not coming out until April of 2018, so we've still got a full year away. All that's been released is just a poster. We know that it's got everybody in it. Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Bill Murray, Jeff Goldblum, Greta Gerwig, Courtney Vance, Harvey Keitel, Tilda Swinton, Scarlett Johansson, Liv Schreiber, Yoko Ono. It's got and
wow, joke, right?
No. Yoko Ono is actually in it.
Oh wow!
Oh, this
yeah. I'm not joking. Like that's.
It wasn't one of those. It wasn't one of those memes like name 10 people who are in the next Wes Anderson movie.
No. Like
you should make it a meme. List 10 people.
So I'm excited for it in that I feel that Wes Anderson is a very he is a director who knows his style and he makes films very firmly within that style. I liked Fantastic Mr. Fox. This is his second fully stop motion film. So right now, at least as far as those films are concerned, he's batting 1,000. The poster itself looks cool. So there's that. Plus, I don't know if it should come as too big of a surprise, but I am a big Greta Gerwig fan. I've probably mentioned that once or twice or 100 times. Never once. And so seeing her name on the poster was automatically like, okay, that's literally all I need to know. So yeah, I am excited about this one. We don't know much about the plot. It's just it's set in Japan and it's about a boy searching for his lost dog. It's completely done in stop motion animation, kind of a la like Rankin Bass, those type of Christmas specials. That's what we know. But I'm excited. I know that you guys are probably not, but still turning the baton over.
So, Will, there was 2 things we also know that you didn't mention.
Okay.
We also know there will be lots of posing symmetry. And also we know that Brad won't watch it. So
Brad will watch it. Brad will watch it because I'm kind of interested in it, and we typically watch movies together. So
that's true.
So here's the thing. I'm not there's some interesting things in Wes Anderson movies. I'm not the biggest fan, but that's mostly of his live action movies. I have not seen The Fantastic Mr. Fox. I've heard it's really good. I would like to see what he does with an animated stop action movie. Probably watch that one, and let that be my litmus test for how much I might like this new one. Hey, I'm open-minded with new movies, right? I never really say. I mean, there are exceptions, but there aren't too many times where I'll say I'll never ever see a movie because you never know. You never know what's going to happen. So, yeah, I'm gonna definitely give it a chance, but I'm gonna see Fantastic Mr. Fox first because I've heard good things about it.
God, now I'm on the hook for 2 more Wes Anderson movies, I guess.
Well, you can always send Jim in like the canary into the mine. Let him test out Fantastic Mr. Fox and say, you should like. Certainly, again, his style isn't for everyone, and I think that's totally fine. I think that there are some types of filmmakers who are who make the types of films that are very bland. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but they're just of such a neutral taste level that anyone can like it one way or the other. A lot of like those very workman-like directors, who can just like take a script, put it on film, whatever. As soon as you start to get directors who develop very specific elements to their style, you're going to run the risk of really appealing or really losing some people in sort of taste. And I think that's okay. I don't need my filmmakers to make films that appeal to everyone. As long as they're making films that are good within their style, I think that's cool. And it's not going to work for everyone. And then there's going to be some filmmakers that come along whose style just absolutely does not work for me that do appeal to other people. And that's also cool.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have to see how things shake out.
Isle of Dogs.
There you go. All right. We'll have to see how things shake out in a year or whenever this movie ends up coming out. Last up for me this week, from a movie news perspective, it's sort of a cheat, kind of, but because movies are hosted on this service as well, I think there's potential application of this movie news bit. I'm referring, of course, to the recent Netflix hack that happened over the weekend. A hacker group basically tried to hold Netflix, or rather 10 episodes of the new season of Orange is the New Black and gave Netflix a ransom and said, if you don't pay us all this money, we're release all these episodes on torrent sites. And Netflix was like, nope, we're not giving you a dime. And sure enough, all of these episodes, the first 10 out of like a 13 or 15 episode season, are now all over the torrent sites. So the group has also come forward and said that they're going to potentially keep doing it until Netflix gives them money. So, you know, I don't know how they're getting this content away from Netflix, but what do you guys think of this whole idea of, like, you know, because media is becoming like pure digital now in terms of how we access it in a lot of ways. How do you feel about this hacking and holding for ransom?
It's awful. I mean, I don't know. You're right. I mean, it raises a lot of questions in my mind because I'm the more pragmatic type, and I'm like, well, how the hell are they getting this content that's out there so early? What do they have tapped into? And I could totally see the studios locking down some of those outlets and maybe doing a serious investigation into some of this stuff, and, you know, have that come with some hefty fines. And I hope so. I'm not a fan of pirating in any sense. I mean, I even get uncomfortable when people come up and tell me they're using the latest device to get all the movies that are recently released for free. We can argue about whether it's really hurting or helping the industry because there's arguments on both sides of the fence. I just think it's kind of gross. I agree, Austin, that you know, that's kind of stuff happens. But this is taking it to a new level, right? Holding a studio's content hostage for ransom. I mean, I give them credit for like ingenuity, but I'm glad Netflix stood up to them and you know, didn't cave.
You know why? It's because Frank Underwood is calling the shots on this this whole shebang.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He certainly is. Man, for me, like, I'm very much right there with you, Jim. I'm not to be too much of a judgy McJudgerson, but
Right.
I'm extremely turned off by the idea of piracy in any way, shape, or form. I think that once upon a time, maybe people could make an argument, like especially kind of in the early music, like streaming days, I like Napster or whatever, you know, where it was the push that got companies to embrace digital distribution of items. So I can kind of understand that, whatever. But right now, a lot of those companies have turned around and have created pretty easy to get to stuff. You know, for example, like Netflix is, I mean, it's obviously a luxury, but it's not a terribly expensive one considering the amount of content that's out there for it. So I personally think that, you know, obviously that these hackers are very, very wrong for what they're doing. This is straight up blackmail, extortion, theft, all of those things, and it's totally awful. It does expose them to, and, you know, Richard in chat mentions this, you know, I hope they don't get the account info of customers. Like the idea that they are, that they're able to get these channels at all is disgusting to me. But even more so, you know, if you are on any of those sites like Reddit or whatever, and you see someone posting the link to it, hey, why don't you watch these first few episodes? It's not harming anyone. They're already out. Don't do it. Don't give the hackers what they want. Give them as few watches or streams or whatever of it, because I think it's sort of disgusting that, you know, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to be watching that because it's now out there. Just as many, there's going to be people that are going to like start dropping those links on Facebook, which is uncomfortable and disgusting as well. And there's going to be people that are going to start casually dropping it into conversations as if they just miraculously, like, you know what, I bet, you know, this is just a hunch, you know, I don't know for sure, but I just have a feeling like in the first episode so-and-so is going to die. I don't know where that comes from. It's just a guess. Because that's how people are, because they want to pretend they're savants in something when all they did is watch an episode early. It's
yeah, I'll tell you what disgusts me, and the whole reason I found out about this is because I got spoiled on something that happens in the first episode.
Oh God!
Someone who did torrent the episodes over the weekend, and I'm like, how the hell did they know that? And then I found out what happened. So, it's not even just that people are taking the content and watching it. It's early. It's that they're now like having the conversations through social media, months before we get to see this content. So, spoilers hurt, you guys. They make unicorns cry.
Yeah.
They serve no value whatsoever, and all the spoiler does is it ruins someone else's enjoyment of something. So, and there's no net benefit to being the guy that leaks this stuff. All you're doing is saying, hey, I want to actively make other people's day less good. And if that crosses your mind and you think like, yeah, this is a thing that I want to do, rethink yourself. Just rethink yourself.
And all that said, the Movie Bears podcast. The Movie Bears podcast is not judging you if you were pirating content or doing
no
stuff. That's all yous, booze. We're just saying, we can see some potential downsides on a lot of different levels. So sad to see that this has happened for sure. I hope Netflix continues to stand up to them. Although, if all of their hot content is getting released early, that may dissuade them from making hot content. And I would hate to see some of my favorite shows, which are Netflix originals, go away or get delayed or something because of that. So
yeah, it looks like they're talking about doing stuff like Portlandia and the new XXX movie as some of the ones that they have access to, like leak next. Like this whole thing just makes me uncomfortable.
Plus, what makes me even more uncomfortable is I don't want hackers knowing how much Mighty Morphin Power Rangers I've been watching lately. Like, that's none of their business. I don't want them to know.
It's a lot. Like, spoiler alert, it's a lot.
All right. Well, goodness. We still have a movie to discuss.
Yeah, we do.
How do you guys feel about maybe switching gears a little bit and getting into that review?
Let's do it. Someone should talk about this movie.
Let's circle the wagons.
Or let the circle be unbroken as we come together and discuss the new film starring Tom Hanks and Emma Watson called The Circle, which may have some eerie connotations about technology and social media and just being a human. I will say before we get into our movie discussion, for anyone that may be new to the show or not quite familiar with our format yet, and that's okay, welcome. We typically talk about the movies spoiler-free for 10, 15, 20 minutes sometimes before we get into spoilers. So if you've heard about this film or seen a trailer, but you're not quite sure whether you want to see it in theaters, we are going to give you our advice. We'll share with you some of our preliminary spoiler-free thoughts, and then we'll awkwardly stall while we wait for you to like close the window or like go make a sandwich and come back or something before we go to spoilers. So all of that said, here we go. Our discussion of The Circle. All right. So, Will, why don't you tell us a little bit about The Circle, and whether you think people should see it in theaters, skip it, check it out on rental. What's your thought?
Yeah, so first of all, it's interesting you mentioned that, because when I walked out of it, the very first thing I did was popped online and said, yeah, that was my least favorite Black Mirror episode to date.
I didn't do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's not because that was like a deep cut for me or anything like that. I think this movie wears that very transparently on its skin. So The Circle is a sci-fi pseudo techno thriller type thing about, I'll read the description and we'll go from there. A woman lands a dream job at a powerful tech company called The Circle, only to uncover a nefarious agenda that will affect the lives of her friends, family, and that of humanity. The woman in this case is Emma Watson. She's joined by Tom Hanks, who plays the charismatic leader of The Circle. We've got some interesting, there's a lot of big names in this. Iller Coltrane plays Emma Watson's friend. You may remember him from Boyhood. This was Bill Paxton's last performance. A fact that didn't really get marketed or advertised, probably for good reason.
Right.
We've got Karen Gillan in this. We just mentioned Amy Pond. Well, here she is again. As well as John Boyega and Patton Oswalt. So this movie should have been way better than it was. And I want to preface this by saying, like, this was not for me an aggressively bad film, but it was a bad film. It had all of the components to be a good film in that it's got a decent cast. And it's directed by James Ponsoldt, who's a dude who he doesn't have a ton of films under his belt, but he does have The End of the Tour and The Spectacular Now were his last two films. And both of them are directed with style and passion, things that are absolutely lacking here. This film is really just a mashup of two separate Black Mirror episodes, which is why I made my previous comment. It is White Bear mixed with Nosedive. Put those two episodes together, you've got this particular movie. I think most uncomfortable or most frustrating about this film is it feels like it doesn't understand technology, and it's a film about technology companies, to the point where, and this is a pedantic point, but bear with me, the company in this movie is called The Circle. And whenever I think of like these tech companies, they're always much sleeker than that. Like Facebook, Google, Snapchat, there's no the there. In fact, when you think about like people that are not technologically with it, you always think of them saying, I'm going to go check the Google. And this movie had that exact same view of technology. Like, it's somebody who would search in the Google wrote this script. There are a lot of plot sections, like where you could tell that they were setting up a character to maybe be more villainous or maybe to be more heroic than they ended up being, where it just feels like large chunks of script were just diced out and nothing was stitched back together. You've got John Boyega and Patton Oswalt both, who turn in performances that are completely pointless in the grand scheme of the story, because it feels like they were probably supposed to have more to do, but instead they just show up every so often, talk, and then wander off. It's a really frustrating movie. You have some characters that, like, the employees of the Circle are like cult-like sometimes, but sometimes not. This is a movie that begged to be more satirical. Like, I think if this movie really veered super hard into like the pointed satire, the way like a Black Mirror episode actually does, I think this could have been fun. But as it was, this was pretty bad. Again, not like worst movie of the year bad. It's not one that's like, you know, that made me angry. It's the worst type of bad movie. It's the type of bad movie that, like, I felt absolutely nothing afterwards. It was just a waste of 2 hours. So it's a pass for me.
Right. So this is a big old pass from you, Will, it sounds like. Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about sort of this film's take on like these big, like, giant tech companies and, you know, the innovation that they're trying to push. You know, I have worked for tech companies in the past, and, you know, I don't know, seeing this movie, it almost like makes me laugh when they're like setting up like the evil, nefarious plot by the dastardly minds behind the company. It's just so like, I don't know. It's like this film is trying to be like a YA, like Black Mirror episode. Again, we keep coming back to that, but that's exactly what Jim and I said coming out of it as well. And it was like, actually, you know what? They had this episode and they did it way better in less time. So, you know, I don't know, I'll just tell you right out of the gate, this is a skip it for me. If you want to see something with this message, but like way better, check out the season 3 opener of Black Mirror. I do want to give a couple shout outs though, just for a couple things. One, Tom Hanks is like the only bright spot of this movie, aside from Glenn Headley, who I'll talk about in a second. That dude, like, he just like oozes like warmth and caring, even though, you know, in this movie things may not be what they seem. You know, I don't know, I like feeling that like warm Tom Hanksness like all over me. That was an interesting phrase. In any event, I also like Glenn Headley, who was really, really awesome. I don't know if you remember, but she was the wife in Mr. Holland's Opus. She played Richard Dreyfuss's wife in that movie, and I adore her, and I had no idea she was going to be in this film. So when she shows up opposite, you know, Bill Paxton, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I love her. So I was very glad to see her. You know, Bill Paxton probably didn't know this was going to be his last movie when he did this movie. I was very cognizant from the get-go, and it's in the trailer. I mean, her, the character that he plays has MS and is afflicted, is having some health challenges. So it was really weird for me to see him kind of like that as his last performance. But it is what it is. There's not much else we can do about it. I really didn't like Amy Pond that much as a companion on Doctor Who. I really didn't like her that much in Guardians of the Galaxy or Oculus, but I kind of liked her here up until the point that things started unraveling. And I won't say any more until we get to spoilers. But then she became like a super laughable character. And, well, for me, you may disagree. And then Emma Watson, this is like the second like non-inspired Emma Watson performance in the last couple ones for me, because I wasn't as big of a fan of her in Beauty and the Beast as lots of other people were. So, by and large, I think the plot for this movie is asininely juvenile and dumb. And I just don't think we got a lot of great performances here. The guys are calling out Patton Oswalt in the chat. Yes, he's cute. Yes, he's adorable. Yes, he's completely ineffective and wasted in this movie as well. So this is a big hard skip for me. The last thing I'll say, I wanted more John Boyega. I love that guy. Why didn't we get more John Boyega? Damn it. But Jim, what about you? We've got two big hard passes so far. Where do you come down?
The reason you didn't get more of John Boyega, number one, I think he was probably miscast in this movie and terribly directed. And the writing failed him as well. I mean, just a total waste on all counts. And that's with a lot of characters. You talked about Patton Oswalt as kind of a throwaway character. Yeah, he didn't belong in the movie. Why did we need two? Why did we need two? I mean, typically in those situations, you have some kind of conflict between of them and, the big boss and the really big boss. But that, of course, didn't happen here. Didn't set that up. The Amy Pond, the character called Annie in this movie, she went from pretty interesting to downright terrible to kind of interesting again toward the end. Kind of the Scotland FaceTime scene I thought was pretty good. And even there's another scene in the bathroom that I thought was pretty good too. But in the middle there, when she's kind of brooding, like screwed up friend, that was very weird. Eller, what's his name? Eller Coltrane, is that his name?
Yep.
Man, he didn't do himself. This movie didn't do him any favors either. I don't know if we can blame his acting chops or just like terrible writing in this movie. This movie just fails on a lot of fronts. There's stuff that happens in this movie that I still to this day don't know why it happened that way. There's a very contrived scene that kind of kicks all the things off in kind of the middle of the movie, involving a big body of water. I'm like, what the hell is this scene? What is going on? I don't know, man. It's just a big misstep movie, and it's a definite skip. I think I'm on the same page as all you guys.
Yeah, I the whole Amy Pond character, I should call her Annie instead of Amy Pond. Like, I am someone who is a fan of Karen Gillan. I think that she is, she's definitely got some talent. She's not always utilized properly. I had problems with everything except for the FaceTime scene towards the end of this movie with her, but I don't blame her. I don't blame Emma Watson. I don't blame Eller Coltrane. I don't blame any of these people, because when everybody on the cast, except for Tom Hanks, who's damn Tom Hanks and can rise above a bad script, when everybody is sort of below standard, that's usually a problem with direction and script. It's not like one person stood out as bad here. For me, it was Tom Hanks was amazing in this. He has these spots where, and only in certain spots, he has these charismatic leader speeches where he gets out on screen and kind of does the "let's do our new tech" thing, and he delivers it perfectly. Like, those are to a T exactly what was needed for the film, and that's the only part of the performances that I think got there. Again, I can't blame anyone for this, except for the script and the director, because it's so widespread and it's so across the board. I don't think anyone was given a chance to shine.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Indeed. Agreed. Well, how about we go to spoilers then? Are we good for that? I mean, is there anything else we need to talk about ahead of time that we haven't hit already?
No, I don't. There's no.
Yeah. Well, there's not even really that much. There's really not even much to spoil in this movie, to be honest with you. But we can get into it anyway.
Yeah. All right. So, listeners, we are going to go into spoilers for The Circle here in just a moment. If you are listening live and after 3 hard passes, you still want to see the movie, good for you, because you know what? You shouldn't always take other people's opinions into account and let it color what you do. Make your own choice, right? But B, that probably means you may want to step away for 10 or 15 minutes from the show so that we don't spoil you. So if you're watching live, feel free to mute us, coming back in 10 or 15 minutes and catch us for plugs. If you're listening on digital tape delay, then refer to your handy dandy time index in the show notes that Jim so lovingly crafts for you every week. And you can go ahead and skip as needed. Nice. Jim's making like little patty cake motions.
That's how he makes them.
I serve it up for you.
Yes. I don't know.
Oh, goodness. All right. We're going to do spoilers here in a moment. I'm going to count down. Are you ready, guys, for our countdown?
Countdown time.
All right. This is an Amy Schumer inspired countdown. 100. 99.
Keep going. I have a story about that too.
All right. Here we go. Spoilers. Totally fair game. You had your chance. Jim, you said you had a quick story about that.
Oh, no. I'm saving my story.
You're saving it?
Yeah, it goes.
Okay.
But I will say, spoilers wise, there really isn't much to talk about in this movie. The ending of this movie was totally befuddling to me. It just the movie just kind of.
It just fucking ended out of nowhere.
They kind of build up to this thing very awkwardly, and then almost like the ending was thrown in, and then okay, we got an ending. That's a wrap. We're done. And then I don't know. I don't mind ambiguous endings in movies when they kind of make sense and fit the tone of the movie, but this one was kind of crazy.
This wasn't an ambiguous ending. This was a film that didn't know what it was saying at any point in the film. Specifically, 2 major things that I can point out to this. One, Emma Watson's character doesn't know what she wants. And that's not because she's an indecisive character. It's because she's representing an indecisive script. All throughout the movie, she keeps saying things along the lines of transparency is really bad and privacy is really good. Next scene, I'm going 100% transparent, and it is the best thing in the world, with no real reason to do that other than the script told her that she needed to. So that was one big problem. The script did not know whether it's pro or anti-privacy, even at the end of the film. But even more so, go ahead, Brad.
I was just going to say, right along with your point, that happens right after she has this meeting with John Boyega down in the server caves, and he's the mysterious third part of the triumvirate that is withdrawn from all social media and blah blah blah. And he's telling her about the dangers of this, right? And then you're right, beats later, she's like, "I'm going fully transparent." It's then why did we have that scene? I don't know.
Well, it's because she is, and you said it before, there's a big YA element to this. She is the most specialist girl. She is brought in to be the poster child for transparency because she is the specialist girl. But also, John Boyega recognizes that she's going to be the one that takes it down because she's the most specialist girl. That was stupid. That was really stupid for me. But on top of all of this, and here's where maybe I had a fundamental misunderstanding of this company and all of these things. The company that we saw on screen was mostly through Tom Hanks and Patton Oswalt, who should not have been in this movie. He did absolutely nothing. They really did nothing aside from sort of like nudging things into some territory that's like, yeah, they probably shouldn't go that hard, right? Like, yeah, that's obviously pushing things hard. So we get this great drop there at the end, and it's even called out here in a chat. You know, the best line of the film is where she's doing the big reveal to everyone, and then Tom Hanks just kind of smiles and says, "We're fucked." And the only reason that we know that they're fucked is because, one, he said it, and two, big company, so there's probably a bunch of illegal stuff. But really, we had there wasn't a lot of stuff in the script that really led us to believe that the Circle was straight out evil and that they were breaking all of these laws. Like, even when John Boyega said, "I found some stuff on the servers," it cut, it moved to another scene, and that was it until the big reveal happened. Boom, then roll credits. That's a problem. When you're going to basically say evil company is evil, you should show us why they're evil. It's not enough just to tell us they are and then end the movie.
Right. I mean, I think they were trying to do a little bit of that. Like, I don't know. So, but they were also trying to be funny with some of it in a way. And I think it downplayed some of the scarier implications. And, you know, we keep coming back to this comparison to Black Mirror, right? The thing with Black Mirror is it makes some of these same points without like making you laugh as you're making them. And so they sort of percolate in your head. And the more you think about it, the scarier it gets. This, and I'll give you an example from the film. You know, one of the characters comes up and she's like, "Oh, you haven't signed up for our social media service yet, new employee? Oh, you've got to sign up and, post all these interesting pictures of the things you're doing, and let's connect, newbie, guppy, whatever," right? And it's like, when Black Mirror does it, the same things are talked about, and it's like, fuck, no, that is scary. In this movie, it's presented as like a joke. So right. The anti-privacy things are addressed to some degree, but it's usually like this laughing thing. Like, for instance, when, because May has gone transparent or whatever, apparently that means her parents have to be fully transparent as well, because she flips on the the camera footage, and there is her mom using a penis pump on Bill Paxton, who has MS. And that's like the second to last time we see Bill Paxton in this movie.
By the way, that's a very uncomfortable scene. Like, when you really think about it, right?
Yeah. Super uncomfortable. Right. Yeah. Right. So, but even that, which is supposed to be like, oh my God, this is crazy scary, because she's using a penis pump, and you've got these comments, like funny comments from, people popping up. Bloop, 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 bloop. I don't know. I think it just steals a lot of that away. So it makes the overall problem less serious. And then the other thing, and then I promise I'll stop talking, just stream of consciousness. We spend this whole the whole movie learning about the Circle, learning about why this anti-privacy thing is bad. And then finally, May is like, "Oh, I have a plan, but John Boyega, I need your help." It's like, oh my gosh, they've got a plan. What's going to happen? Bam. And then like the end of the movie just happens, and you're like, wait, that was the plan?
That's what I meant by kind of like a ambiguous, unresolved ending. Like that ending could have gone in many different directions, right? All right, she did her big thing. She basically said, "We're going to monitor you guys now. Ha ha ha. How do you like that?" And that's the end of the movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
But that's not the end of the movie, and this is why. Like, even if that had been the end of the movie, if that right there had been the end of the movie, if they said, "We're going to monitor you now, and we can now see
your email,
all of your stuff, your emails," if it had ended right there, that would have at least basically said, like, sent the message, transparency is only good if it's everybody, or something along those lines. But instead, the very next scene, like, this is where it ends, and this is where it's a problem. She's out there in the water, and then there's like these drones following her and cameraing, and she's back to being 100% transparent. So at the end of the movie, our main character, who is just like, "Hey, transparency is bad," is like, "Hey guys, I'm transparent again." The end. So that was my problem. That was my biggest problem. She could not make up her fucking mind. And again, it's not because she's an indecisive character. It's because the movie didn't know what it was trying to say.
Well, and
doesn't show us. Go ahead, Brad. Go ahead.
No, go for it, sweetheart.
Yeah, on that point, it just doesn't show us her motivations, the character's motivations for her switch. That's all I was trying to say. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, babe, and it muddies the waters, so to speak, in a way too, right? Because it's like, okay, so why is she still doing this? Is she doing it because in order for them to be transparent, she has to still be transparent? I'm thinking that's the only reason. But then the flip side of that is, they could easily, and by they I mean, Tom Hanks and Patton Oswalt, just be transparent for a week as like as like just a gimme, like throw them a bone and then be like, well, because we run a company, we had our fun being transparent for a week, but we do have closed doors business we have to do. They could easily like PR spin their way out of that. So I didn't feel like this was a crippling or damning thing the way the movie was trying to make it out to be.
It's like the movie doesn't understand how corporations actually work. Like, because some person that's worked there for a couple weeks says something on stage, okay, Facebook is now closed. It's like, no, that's not the way things work. There would be PR, there'd be spin. I think this movie just didn't understand the leaps it was taking. It even did a bunch of things where, like, I felt like I was very easily stumped by why the film wasn't able to track her as well as they could have, when this whole thing is about her transparency. Like, there's the spot where she and John Boyega go into a spot where she's not supposed to be. And if they had even just techno-magicked it a little bit more, like, hey, I've put this scrambler on your bracelets, now they can't find you, fine. Techno-magic, it's fine. But their solution was, take off your bracelet and leave it right outside of the room that you're not supposed to be in. Because then they won't know that you are in the room that you're not supposed to be in. Like, at some point, they're just like, yeah, look, she's just been standing there motionless, possibly dead because she's obviously doesn't have a pulse, right outside of the server room. Gee, well, nothing to look into there.
But here's the other thing. In the scene where she gets the fucking bracelet, they had her drink nanomolecular trackers, for God fucking sake. So they're tracking her through her like molecular trackers, not just her bracelet, right? So really, what does that accomplish?
Even sillier, they had her ingest this tracker, right? So she drinks it in this green juice or whatever. It's in her body, fine. There is a scene right afterwards, and William in chat mentions that, there's a moment when Emma laughs at her coworker who's installing a chip in their bone. One of the conversations she has with one of her coworkers is the way that we're developing this new technology to track people, where you inject a chip inside of their bone. But apparently there's already a digestible version of this chip live at the company. So it's this woman just working on this pointless project. It's really, really like the film didn't know the things it was saying as it was saying them. It's almost like someone just had opened like a random like tech journal, copy and pasted a few things and said, fuck it, I'll have them say that. Like, this was bad.
I think it's one step worse than that. I think it's someone opened an internet forward that they got 10 years ago in their email and was like, oh my God, this would be a scary movie to make.
This is the movie that you like, your grandmother who is always like, you got to be careful about the Facebook because you don't know who's going to be able to watch you on the Facebook. This is the type of movie that would scare her. I think anyone else who's actually grown up or utilized any of these technologies is just going to think this is very eye roll worthy. But at the end of the day, the Tom Hanks scenes were pretty good. Like, I want to see a movie. I want to see him play. Do you ever see the Master, the Philip Seymour Hoffman? Yep. Okay, so imagine a film that is more of that tone, but about this subject matter, with Tom Hanks playing the charismatic leader. Imagine that film in your brain. I want to watch that film. I think this is still a good role for Tom Hanks. It's just everything around him was not enough to make it memorable or good whatsoever.
You could even say everything else sullied it.
Yeah. That's very big of you.
Yeah, I know we've kind of beat this film up. At the top, we said it wasn't an actively bad movie, but I think it bordered on that based on our conversation. There were some things about this movie. I'm going to finish off by positive things. The Tom Hanks performance was typical Tom Hanks. His charisma carried him through this movie. The other good things were, I'm going to have to think hard about this. Well, Bill Paxton, it was great to see him on the screen again. It kind of reminds us not of, I mean, this wasn't a great role for him, nor, you know, but it kind of reminds us of what a great actor we lost, you know, in Bill Paxton. Other than that, I mean, there really isn't much. I mean, if you want to see a good John Boyega movie, go watch Attack the Block. You know what I mean? Go watch that one. Or if you want to see a good Patton Oswalt movie where he plays like, you know, where he's not doing comedy and he's playing like a real character, go see Young Adult with Charlize Theron. You know, these are the kind of roles I want to see in these people. You know, this is the kind of quality role I want to see these people get, because I know that they're talented actors, and to see a movie script and direction like reduce them to nothingness is really sad for me.
Yeah.
Definitely. Other positive is it's not 2 hours. Like, this is only an hour and 50 minutes. And I know that sounds like kind of like a backhanded compliment. And in some ways it is, but there's this tendency towards script bloat towards in movies like this, like, oh, I've got Tom Hanks in it, so let's make it a 2 hour and 20-minute film. Let's make it 2 hours and 30 minutes. This film could have very easily been stupid long. And the fact that it came in under 2 hours is sort of miraculous.
Right.
Agreed. One last thing I just wanted to circle back to while we're talking about positives. I mentioned that I liked the Karen Gillan character for the first part of the movie. She's the one that kind of like scores May the interview, helps get her a little bit like oriented to working on the campus. You know, she's her friend, shows her behind the scenes and stuff, and that's cool. But like, we get to this point where the character's like overworked and she's no longer, wow, like all these other negative things are popping in my brain. I have to quell them. I'm sorry. But she gets to this point where she's no longer with it and wonderful. And she's apparently like hooked on speed and other pills. And she's got like goth eyeliner on and her hair is all dark and stringy and she's frazzled. And like, I laughed so hard about that when it was meant to be serious. But I promise I'm bringing it up to talk about a positive. So we'll come full circle to something you said earlier, Jim, which was the Scotland FaceTime scene. I really liked that scene a lot. I felt like that was a great use of that character. It was good to see Annie sort of like away from the circle and like becoming herself again. And I don't know. I thought that was a really great way to sort of underscore this idea of like getting away from technology, getting away from the crazy stuff we crazy stress we put ourselves under, and how transformative that can be for you. So I did appreciate that scene, Jim. That was a good one to point out.
Yeah. If only the movie really had that on its mind, it might have been a better movie. You know what I mean? I think that point did kind of come out in that scene. I'm just not so sure that the movie really followed up on that idea.
Yeah, it didn't, like, it was really good. It was really good payoff for a really bad setup. Like that would have been a fantastic scene in a better movie. So just as it was, that scene was really good. It's just like we weren't able to really connect with it the way we should have because of all the stuff before and after it. One thing that's really interesting too is I feel like I can't think of another film where we were all three of us as in sync on this one. Like, I feel like we've all had ones like where we like, I like this movie, I also like this movie, but we've disagreed on some of the points along the way. I could be wrong, but it feels like we liked the same stuff and disliked the same one. So this is put this one in your book, guys. Like, this is our first full on like triplicate review.
Wow. It's been a slow few weeks at the movies in terms of new releases that we can really get in the theaters, but things are turning around. Obviously, the next several months are going to be really exciting. So,
hopefully, fingers crossed. But now that we've gotten our review done, we have a very exciting announcement for you guys. Hold on to your armchairs. Hope you're ready. In the spirit of what the circle brought to light and taught us, Jim, Will, and myself have all agreed to go fully transparent. That's right. At bear pool parties this year, you're going to get to see exactly what we see. You're going to see all of it all summer long. No, I'm totally just kidding. But wouldn't that be a hot tumbler?
Oh, that would be an amazing Tumblr. I mean, technically, that would just be sniping pictures of bears I've seen. The Tumblr, which those don't exist, right? Like, you can't go on Tumblr and just find pictures.
No,
of someone sniped. That doesn't exist. No.
But where would we put the camera?
You would just mount it like right between your nipples. You'd have the camera right there.
Like a third nipple.
Yeah, it's like right there in the center. Like, hey guys, my eyes are up here. The bolts are down there, but my eyes are up here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what it would be? You'd actually like the little like I don't have a piercing. I don't know what they're called. The little bulbs like on the end of your nipple piercings could be little cameras.
Maybe they already are.
Maybe. Could be. I don't know. Possibly. But anyway, hey guys, let's wrap up with some plugs real quick as we shift gears towards wrapping this thing up. Jim, what have you got this week?
So I didn't really get. We were at a bear event in Phoenix, and buried in that, and I had a bunch of work to catch up on. So I didn't really get to see any movies, but I did want to mention a trailer that I saw. There's actually 2 trailers out for this movie. The movie is. We know that A24 is on a huge roll with movies, and one of the movies they got coming out is called "It Comes at Night." And if you haven't seen the first trailer for this movie, which I think is kind of a masterpiece in terms of horror trailers, second one not so much. Second one gets kind of more into what the real story is, but that first trailer is amazingly edited. I love it. This movie stars Joel Edgerton, a lot of other people that I'm not really that familiar with, but it's directed by Trey Edward Schultz. He directed a movie from last year called Krisha that I saw that was really kind of I have a feeling this movie's going to deal more in tension than outright horror, and I'm totally fine with that. A24 is killing it in the kind of reimagining what horror films are like. It's called It Comes at Night. Check out, if you do watch trailers, check out the first trailer for that. And the story I wanted to tell was, we saw the trailer for this in the movie theater, and I was kind of listening for. We had just seen a bunch of trailers like for shitty movies, like what's her name, Amy, whatever her name movie. Amy Schumer's
movie. Snatched.
Yeah, and God, I've very forgettable trailers for movies that are coming out. And everybody's like, oh, that looks good. I want to see that. That looks amazing. And then when the It Comes at Night trailer plays, at the end of the trailer, people are like, that looks stupid. I don't think I want to watch that. like I just don't get it. Like, it's like sometimes I feel like I'm on a different planet from people. But anyway, check out the trailer for It Comes at Night.
Well, we kind of see that sometimes, like with our show sometimes, because it's like, you want to talk about those films, which are probably going to be the big ones everyone's talking about, right? But then you also want to talk about these like esoteric, like really cool, maybe like indie films we saw at a film festival. And it's like, where do you sort of strike the balance of serving both? Right. And Jim, I caught it too when we were seeing that succession of trailers. It's kind of like, man, like people are so engrossed in what looks like it could be a super shitty movie. I don't know, may not be. I'd have to see it to really make that determination. But then you get something like this that just like really pulls you in and you're like, God, that looks wonderful. And people are like laughing, like, oh my God, that looks dumb. So I think it's just interesting sort of how like we have sort of a different perplexity of potential opinion.
Well, it's like with anything, like I think the more exposure you have to certain things, the more complex your tastes get towards it. Like imagine like, a wine connoisseur, just to get like and going as snooty as possible, who has been doing it for 6 months versus who's been doing it for 40 years. When you've had more and more of different things to try out and taste, you start to kind of like look for more subtlety and look for more nuance. For me, It is weird. Like there are 3 movies right now that are like sort of at the pinnacle of my I can't wait to see them this year. One of them is It Comes at Night, mainly because trailer is a masterpiece, and Trey Edward Schultz, like you mentioned, was so damn good with Krisha. The other 2, A Ghost Story, which is the another A24 film by David Lowery, and then a Neon film called Ingrid Goes West. Those 3 films are the ones that have me psyched, and those aren't going to be the giant multiplex films, and I'm already okay with that, because I'm going to enjoy the hell out of them, or at least I hope I am.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, Will, what have you got for plugs this week?
It's hard because I'm in the same boat in that, like, a lot of the things that I've seen lately have not been the type that I could really recommend for one reason or another. Like, I just saw this bonkers movie called Wolf Guy, like a 1975 Sonny Chiba movie that played here. And it was a lot of fun, but you're not going to be able to ever see that. It's not a really good one to recommend here. So what I'm going to instead do is I'm going to plug not a movie, but I'm going to plug another podcast, only because I happen to have appeared on it, so it's tangentially linked. We mentioned a few weeks back that I had was recording a guest spot on the War Machine versus War Horse podcast. These guys are good friends of our show. And they invited me over to talk. As being a Texas resident, they wanted to talk about Terrence Malick, specifically Song to Song, and the kind of his love of like the pastoral Texas type stuff. So we talked about that movie and compared it to Imitators, which included David Lowery's Ain't Them Body Saints and All the Boys Love Mandy Lane, which shared some similarities with Malick. So that podcast is called War Machine versus War Horse. It just went live today, so you can find it on iTunes, and we shared a link on our Facebook page. So in lieu of a movie, go listen to me talking about Terrence Malick.
Excellent.
There you go.
Excellent.
All right. Yeah, we love those guys over at War Machine versus War Horse. Definitely, we've got nice. Yeah, I love their little like opening thing. Like,
it's a war machine and horse.
We've got some folks in the chat who are saying that that podcast doesn't sound familiar and that they need to check it out. Totally agree, you guys. If you like quality movie podcasts, they are not specifically an LBGT like themed show like ours is, but when you're talking about movies, you don't have to be. So definitely go check out their show. You will not be disappointed. And Will, glad you got a chance to catch up with those guys. That's fantastic. I guested to talk about Frozen once upon a time. And I had a lot of fun until I realized it wasn't the Disney Frozen movie. It was the Sean Ashmore Frozen movie. So that made for, I don't know. They were very kind to me for misunderstanding the assignment, but they're amazing is the point that I'm trying to make. So, all right. So for me this week, we were talking about this earlier, but Guardians of the Galaxy 2, or rather Volume 2, comes out this weekend. We, Jim, are either going to have to see it in LA Thursday night, which we may be able to arrange, or in Hawaii at some point over the weekend or next week. But definitely, if you love the first one, I'm sure you're excited about the second one. It's already on your radar. I'm excited to see it. It'll be weird to go from like being on a beach to like going to a movie if we see it in Hawaii, babe. I don't know. That'll be a jarring transition. But it's a transition I'm willing to make.
Just no water. We live in a beach. We go to the movies all the time.
That's when I think of beaches, like best beaches in the world, I definitely think of Arizona.
Yeah.
Isn't there even a country song about oceanfront property in Arizona? So I mean, it seems like you're onto something.
I mean, Arizona will someday be oceanfront property when the big earthquake hits and The Rock like tries to save everybody. But until that happens, I don't exactly consider Arizona a great beach spot. So William in the chat says, to be fair, other than the wedding, I think there might be other things Brad's hoping to do in Hawaii. William, that is true. I definitely, I'm looking forward to just hanging out at the beach, maybe checking out the local bear scene, lots of other things. I'm excited to experience those things with you, babe. So I'm glad that we're going. I will say, just as we close things down here, just as a reminder, we will not be recording next week. So we had about 20 of you guys hanging out with us live at one point tonight. Love having you guys with us week after week, tuning in for the live show. Thank you again for understanding why we won't be recording next week. But put it on your calendars. Come on back the following week for our Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 review. We are excited to chat with you again at that point.
You know what our listeners should do next week, Brad, is so the ones that would normally be tuning in live at this exact same time, use this opportunity, this extra, hour and change that you're hanging out with us. Go catch a movie. Go see something. Tell us what you saw. That'd be kind of a fun homework assignment. Go watch something and let us know what you saw.
Come tell us.
Yeah.
There you go. I like that idea. That would be awesome. In fact, some of the guys in the chat are asking Jim if we have a wedding registry. A, that's very sweet of you to ask, guys. But B, you know what you could get us? You could get us seeing a really cool movie and sending in your thoughts about it. And maybe we can share those with our listeners when we come back. So check out a movie next week when you'd normally, like Will said, be catching our podcast. Maybe email us some thoughts. You can send those to Brad at Movie Bears Podcast, Jim at Will at moviebearspodcast.com, or pop them on Facebook, Twitter, however you prefer. We would love to maybe find some new cool movies to see through your expertise. So that is the gift that keeps on giving, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you very much. Guys, we love you. We adore you. We will see you all in a couple weeks. Take care. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.